we're talking about this drought expanding across the area over the next few days, and we look ahead to see if there's any relief on the horizon, what this will mean as far as the fall colors this year.
Plus, we're looking back at one of the most powerful and costliest storms to ever hit Alabama, Hurricane Frederick, which hit on this date 46 years ago. And your video and pictures, we'll tell you how you can send them to us right from your phone. It's super easy to do.
Live on your side. First Alert Weather Extra starts right now.
And welcome in. We made it to Friday, Lauren.
We did. We have made it to Friday, and there has barely been a drop of rain around. Just a couple of isolated showers today.
Just a couple of isolated showers today. The lucky winners, I was looking, Hale County. We have a couple, just one lone shower, but it's off to the south. So, yeah, we have seen a little bit of rain, but you look at the setup right now, it's just very dry. Live look from 8 Air Tire here in Gardendale. You can notice the base of those clouds very high. We got a lot of dry air in the atmosphere. There's Walker County, and with it being so dry, the ground especially, that's going to allow these temperatures to drop off quickly. Notice Birmingham, the dew point's at 50, so that is very crispy conditions out there. Winds out of the northeast, but sunset time, we're coming up on it at 6:57. And listen, if you didn't get a chance, you want to go to the beach this weekend, well, we'll bring it to you, right? Gulf Shores, live look from the hangout. Lauren and I, we were just taking a note of that lovely view there, and it looks like a pleasant evening to take a stroll along the coast. But looking at the radar, most areas dry, but yes, we still have a little bit of rain. You can see it is south of Greensboro here over Hale County with that north flow, and it's the same sort of setup that kicked off those isolated. We had some rain early morning that moved through Tuscaloosa, parts of West Alabama, some of these lone showers, and we're still seeing that moving south. Cedarville right now getting a little bit of rain. This is south of Greensboro, tracking down along Highway 43, Highway 25 regions there. Lock 5, a first alert if you live in that area, might have a passing shower as that moves south. Friday evening forecast, though, not too bad. Notice how quickly these temperatures improve. 8 to 9 o'clock, temperatures in the mid-70s already. So we're already dropping off. It's down to 88 in Birmingham, and when we get an update, it'll go even lower. But going from 88 to 75 this evening, that's a big drop-off. And that's what happens here. You see these big fluctuations. The temperature's very reactive to dry air like this. And tomorrow, you look at the kickoff forecast in Tuscaloosa and at Auburn in the 80s, and these games are going to carry over into the afternoon. So that's why I really want to stress here, it is going to be dangerously hot tomorrow afternoon, especially inside those stadiums, inside Bryant-Denny. That's the actual air temperature, not feels like 102 degrees because of the structure there. It just brings in that heat. It's kind of like when you hear us talk about how cities are a lot hotter with all the concrete. Well, those temperatures in a football stadium like this can go 5-10 degrees higher. So plan for that, dress for the occasion, as I say, and make sure you have the sunscreen. Also stay well hydrated for tomorrow. Just be careful in the afternoon. Again, Jordan Hare, I think we could be up to around 97. So basically feels like around 100 degrees there later in the day for the games. And then tomorrow evening, the temperatures will improve nicely. But it's going to feel nice early morning. But again, we just heat up those afternoons, very toasty, and that's going to continue into next week. Drought worsens, so at this point, as Lauren, I'm sure you would agree, it's best to hold off on burning at this time.
Yeah, that's right, Wes. Well, a very different story. Almost half a century ago, it's been 46 years since one of the most destructive hurricanes in Alabama history made landfall. Hurricane Frederick made landfall about 10 p.m. on September 12, 1979 in Dauphin Island. It was a Category 4 hurricane with maximum sustained winds at 130 miles per hour. There were recorded gusts of 145 miles per hour on Dauphin Island just prior to landfall. The storm surge ranged between 12 to 15 feet on the beach and between 8 and 10 feet in Mobile Bay. Between Fort Morgan and Gulf Shores, 80% of the homes and businesses were destroyed. 90% of Mobile lost power. Damage from Frederick was $2.3 billion. That's more than $6 billion when adjusted for inflation today. At the time, it was the costliest hurricane in U.S. history. Well, President Trump has approved $29.8 billion in disaster relief funds for Wisconsin following historic flooding back in August. Local leaders across the state say this disaster declaration approval from the president is a step in the right direction. FEMA crews conducted damage assessments throughout southeast Wisconsin last month, which led to the approval of the funding. The state of Wisconsin estimated $33 million in individual damage. More than 1,500 homes were damaged or destroyed.
All right, checking in. If you're heading out to the lake tomorrow, our first alert fishing forecast, we'll see highs in the afternoon around 89 degrees out there on the water. A little bit cooler, but you can see the moonset time at 1:15, so should see some good movement there later in the day. I mentioned today's sunset around 6:57, and we're about 10 days away from the arrival of the fall season, but unfortunately that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to feel like fall, right, Lauren?
Right, Wes, unfortunately, but are we surprised? It's Alabama. Well, have you ever looked up at that Alabama sky and noticed what looks like a rainbow around the sun? It's known as a sundog. So how do they form? First Alert meteorologist Brendan Jackson from our sister station KWTX has the answer.
Check out this video taken by a viewer last week. This halo that is appearing around the sun is a phenomenon known as a sundog. For a sundog to appear, we first need a layer of thin clouds high up in the atmosphere. Unlike low and mid-level clouds, high clouds are not made up of liquid water, but rather of ice crystals. These crystals can come in many shapes, but the ones that are needed to make the sundog phenomena come in the shape of a hexagon. These ice crystals are common in cirrus and cirrostratus type clouds, those thin, wispy, translucent clouds that can cover a good portion of the sky on an otherwise clear day. Sundogs are a result of sunlight interacting with those ice crystals that make up high wispy clouds. Light that would not otherwise hit our eyes is bent, or refracted, by the ice back towards us, creating this optical illusion of a ring of light around the sun. Sundogs, like the one captured here, have the look of a rainbow. This is because different colors of light are bent at slightly different angles by the ice depending on their wavelength, much like how the light is bent by water drops in a normal rainbow. So, while they may seem otherworldly, in reality, sundogs are just another case of the laws of physics creating something beautiful in our sky. For KWTX, I'm First Alert meteorologist Brendan Jackson.
I don't know about y'all, love a good sundog, but speaking of the sun, you notice as we get closer and closer to the autumn equinox, it seems like the daylight is getting shorter and shorter. So I wanted to give you just a little preview of what 6 p.m. is going to look like over the next few months. Now, let's look at tomorrow for Saturday. The sun will be setting at 6:56 tomorrow, so just a little bit before 7 o'clock, which, hey, don't love it. But at 6 o'clock tomorrow, there will still be a nice blue, dry, cloudless sky outside. Now, let's jump ahead to 1 month in October. What will 6 p.m. look like? Well, by the time we get in October, we are going to be closer to that 6 p.m. sunset. So we may have some beautiful sunset colors in the sky, those oranges and pinks we love so much around sunset. Unfortunately, though, here's the catch, y'all. As we get 2 months from now, which is hard to believe, that's going to be November, this will be after daylight saving time. And so as we look ahead to 2 months from now in November, we go from in October, a sunset around 6 o'clock to the sun setting before 5 p.m. And then, as we know, it gets even worse in December, the sun setting closer to 4:30. So it is likely as we go forward in time around 6 p.m. over the next few months, it's just going to be getting darker and darker. So, hey, with the beautiful weather this weekend, even though it's going to be hot, I would stay out as late as you can and enjoy those late sunsets because we are just going to be losing daylight from here in the days ahead. Well, we're introducing you to a kid on a mission, how he's raising money for a great cause by riding the waves.
You're watching WBRC 6 News, Alabama Broadcasters Association's Station of the Year.
All right, kicking off the weekend with temperatures in the 80s for most areas at the moment. Right now, you can see there's still some of that haze on the horizon. That's a look from Nectar, looking back to the north direction, and we still have some of that haze from wildfire smoke from the Canadian fires that's been tracking across the country. That north flow's been bringing that in. Also on top of it, it's dusty, right? We've had some dry conditions, so a lot of, as we say, particulates in the atmosphere, and that's why it's kind of hazy out there. But if you plan on doing some yard work, I tried to tackle it today. Make sure you mask up because it is going to be dusty. A good tip is someone on Facebook said, hey, just go ahead and put a light watering on the yard before you mow. So that might help you out there. So next few days it's going to be staying very dry. 86 in Anniston, 88 in Birmingham right now, 90 degrees in Tuscaloosa. This is what's interesting. We still have a little pop-up. You know, we left that small 20% chance of rain in there. We had a couple of these early in the day. You checked in with Megan early morning, tracking some of that wet weather. And right now, folks in southern Hale County winning out right around, that's a Lock 5, old Lock 5 there along the Warrior River where we're seeing that rain. And if this holds together, this might end up around the city of Demopolis. So listen, folks, Forkland South, I'm giving you the first alert. We might have a little bit of rain to help settle the dust, and this is one area where we really need it. Notice there is a severe drought in those areas, level 3 out of 5. Now, the drought conditions have expanded into Tuscaloosa, Jefferson counties, and this will likely expand right on into East Alabama into tomorrow afternoon. And September and October, these are two of our driest months of the year. But that said, that doesn't mean we can't have significant rainfall this time of the year. We've had hurricanes, we've had tropical storms. We just told you about Frederick, so we can have some big-time rain this time of the year, so it's not always dry in September, and this is certainly abnormally dry conditions that we are dealing with right now. We could use a little bit of rainfall. So as we look ahead, tomorrow looks like a dry day. We're going to start out, we'll have temperatures in the morning, we'll start out in the 60s again, so a big drop-off early in the day, low 60s to the north around Gadsden 61, 60 in Coleman, 62 at Hamilton, but watch how quickly that temperature turns around. We'll get to midday into the afternoon. We go from 20 degrees plus there later in the day, and actually, I mentioned earlier, if you're inside the football stadiums, it could be even 5 to 10 degrees hotter than the actual high temperature that we see at the airport. So watch out for very dangerously hot conditions there later in the day, but then tomorrow night we'll see conditions improve quickly. With the ground so dry, that temperature will fluctuate nicely during the evening, and we'll see a nice drop off. So in the tropics, this is the week, the statistical peak of the Atlantic hurricane season, and still no named systems out there, but there's now a medium chance a tropical depression could form over the weekend. So don't be surprised you see that alert on the First Alert Weather app. Where would this be? It would be way out over the central Atlantic, and once again it looks like it's going to follow this overall pattern that we've been seeing in the tropics. With this ridging over the central Atlantic, it sort of finds a weakness and starts to track towards the north. But again, as long as anytime we have a system east of the Gulf, I say watch it. Let's keep an eye on it over the next few days, but no concerns at this time. But we will keep you well informed. If you're heading out to the concert, you better get to rolling here out at the Hardy concert this evening. Should be some nice weather, but there's more concerts. Coca-Cola Amphitheater, Fish tomorrow night, I believe, and into Sunday. So weather should be fine during the evenings. Any plans that you have, we have the State Fair in town, so we're looking at dry conditions in the next week. Highs, though, heating up into the mid-90s for the afternoons Monday and Tuesday. Overnight lows in the 60s, and 10 days out on the 10-day forecast, we've got fall there starting to pop into the long-range forecast. That's the official arrival, but notice as we get closer to the first day of fall, it still feels like summertime. But make sure you scan the code, download our free WBRC First Alert Weather app, because this data that you see on this app, unlike other apps, that's data from our team of meteorologists. We input that every day, so you're getting our local forecast. But we'll be checking back in on the 10-day. Right now, we head over to Lauren to talk about what's happening in the night sky.
Well, Wes, NASA has banned Chinese citizens with U.S. visas from participating in agency programs. The move marks a dramatic escalation in the space race between China and the U.S. It also comes as China is gearing up to send a crewed mission to the moon by 2030. Two sources at NASA say that the new policy began last Friday. It affects hundreds of scientists and researchers, many of whom were funded by NASA to conduct their work. It is not clear if there was a specific incident that prompted this crackdown. In a statement, NASA's press secretary says the restrictions were imposed in order to ensure the security of the agency's work. While a young surfer is making waves far beyond the Carolina coast, he's harnessing his passion for the ocean to try to make a difference for communities in need. Lauren Korn has the story.
I like surfing so much because I love being in the water.
Every ride and even wipeout is an adventure for Grayson Gatlin.
George is going to have to teach me about that GoPro thing because he's going to want that.
He jumped on a shortboard 4 years ago to learn how to catch a wave and never looked back.
When you catch it, it's fun because it's like you work so hard to do it. Like the paddling, there's so much going through your mind, but as soon as you drop in, it just goes blank.
But the 11-year-old is now catching waves that count.
That was a good one.
When you give back, you make someone else happy.
Grayson joined the Surf Aid's Make a Wave Challenge, shredding every day for the month of September to raise money for remote surf communities in Indonesia and Solomon Islands.
Like clean water, food, healthcare, and essential needs like that. And the stuff that we take for granted.
His goal is to raise $5,000.
$5,000 in 30 days. You think you can do it?
I think so.
Paddle, 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 paddle.
Grayson's mother capturing his determination on daily videos.
He will not come out of the water unless he has one last one.
Documenting his charitable journey.
It's just great that you're able to do something you love, and appreciate what you're doing, because instead of just having a reward for yourself, you're having a reward for others.
Grayson says he is stoked not to only tackle this year's challenge,
One more, he's saying.
but wants to continue making waves that reach far beyond the shore.
My goal for next year, to get at least first place, to raise the most money.
Not bad, not bad.
Well, Wes, do you like ice cream? How about this? This hurts me to say, sunscreen flavored ice cream. Van Leeuwen Ice Cream and Carnival Cruise Line teamed up for an unusual collaboration celebrating the end of summer. They created a sunscreen ice cream for a marketing campaign. Ingredients in the ice cream include coconut cream, not bad, cocoa butter, questionable, vanilla extract, and sea salt. People who've tried it and said it was, quote, surprisingly delicious. I don't know about that. Well, you can't currently buy it in stores yet. The two brands are asking people to share their reactions on social media. They'll decide whether it gets enough buzz to offer it to consumers for a limited time. You know, Wes, we may have to try that here on Weather Extra.
Hairspray flavored. Okay.
No, you know what? I think I can stomach some sunscreen. If only it had a little bit of SPF in it. Yeah. Well, you know, we're talking about sunscreen. Obviously, we're in a very hot and dry pattern, but I know a lot of you are getting a little curious. If you love to look at fall foliage, we wanted to bring you that Friday fall foliage forecast. And spoiler alert, there ain't much going on now. And the hot and dry conditions certainly aren't going to be accelerating that anytime soon. But I did want to give you a look across the southeast of when we see that average peak fall color. And this is courtesy of explorefall.com. So let's focus on Alabama here, where you see that light yellow color, which is showing up across north and parts of central Alabama. That tells us that typically we don't see that peak fall color until early November. And then for the southern half of central Alabama and the rest of the state, really not until mid-November. Now, that's not to say you couldn't see color ahead of time, but that's when we're really going to be seeing those more vibrant colors. Won't be until we get into November. So let's kind of track it out here over the next few weeks. So right now, there ain't much going on. Likely won't be much next week either. But as we get towards the end of September, we begin to see maybe a few little sparse areas where you can see a little bit of color changing. And then a month from now, as we get into early mid-October, it should be a little bit more patchy. But you know, one thing that could really impact this is if we continue to see a prolonged period of drought. Even once the leaves begin to change color, they may not be quite as vibrant if we were in a situation where we had a wetter pattern. So let's track it out here. Here we are, September 12th. The only spots we're really beginning to see maybe a little bit of color change is in the Rockies and into parts of the Appalachians. But as we go forward in time, next week, still not much happening in our area. As we get towards the end of the month, possibly in northeast Alabama, you begin to see a little bit of color change, but it's very minimal. And then as we get into early October, you see we kind of go from that minimal coloring to patchy coloring across north and central Alabama. October 17th, so this is about a month from now, beginning to see some more colors becoming more vibrant across central Alabama. And then in early November, that's when it really begins to pop. We have a final look at your forecast and those viewer photos after the break.
Explore the wonders of weather with Weather in the Classroom. Scan the QR code now to help your kids soar to new heights with Soar with 6.
Well, check this out, Wes. We've got some really cool views on those viewer photos. This is a time lapse of a recent sunset over Rainbow City. Thanks to Rodney Frazier for sending it in to us.
You can tell those earlier sunset times. And look at all the hummingbirds enjoying a nice little taste of a little sweet treat before the trip, right? As they're getting ready, the big hummingbird migration starting to happen here. Maryland Hallmark sharing that lovely video.
And we'll have a story on that coming up soon on Weather Extra. But this is a recent sunset as seen from Vance. Thanks to Glenn Smith for sending that in. Gorgeous views.
Yeah, Tuscaloosa County glowing there. And this picture of a beautiful sunset in Birmingham. Thanks to Tiffany for sending it to us on the First Alert Weather app.
And then this looks like something out of a Thomas Kincaid painting. It's actually a picture of Yellowstone National Park. Thanks to Amy Wayne for sending that in. And just goes to show we love your travel photos too.
We love those. And I've got to visit Yellowstone one day. But listen, wherever you're at, the weather app goes with you. Download our First Alert Weather app. Scan the code. A lot of you have reached out. How can I send you a photo? It's one click. So just share that with us. But a lovely sunset this evening. And we'll see you tonight.